All right. 2 Kings chapter 6. And the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, "See, the place where we dwell with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and let every man take a log from there, and let us make there a place to dwell." And he answered, "Go." Then the one said, "Please undertake to go with your servants." And he answered, "I shall go." And he went with them. And they came to the Jordan, and they cut down trees. And it came to be, as one was cutting down a tree, that the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried out and said, "Oh, my master, for it was borrowed." And the man of Elohim said, "Where did it fall?" And he showed him the place, and he cut off a stick, and threw it in there, and made the iron float. And he said, "Pick it up." And he reached out his hand and took it. And the sovereign of Aram was fighting against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, "My camp is in such and such a place." And the man of Elohim sent to the sovereign of Israel, saying, "Be on guard, do not pass this place, for the Armenians are coming down there." The sovereign of Israel then sent to the place of which the man of Elohim had spoken to him, and warned him, so that he was on his guard there, not once and not twice. And this greatly troubled the heart of the sovereign of Aram. And he called his servants and said to them, "Declare to me, who of us is for the sovereign of Israel?" And one of his servants said, "None, my master, O sovereign, for Elisha the prophet, who is in Israel, declares to the sovereign of Israel the words that you speak in your bedroom." And he said, "Go and see where he is, so that I send and get him." And it was reported to him, saying, "See, he is in Dothan." And he sent horses and chariots, a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And the servant of the man of Elohim rose early and went out and saw an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servants said to him, "O my master, what do we do?" And he answered, "Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed and said, "Yahweh, I pray, open his eyes and let him see." And Yahweh opened the eyes of the young man, and he looked and saw the mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yahweh and said, "Strike this nation with blindness, I pray." And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and let me bring you to the man whom you seek." But he led them to Shomeron. And it came to be, when they had come to Shomeron, that Elisha said, "Yahweh, open the eyes of these men so that they see." And Yahweh opened their eyes, and they looked and saw they were in the midst of Shomeron. And when the sovereign of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "My father, should I strike? Should I strike?" But he said, "Do not strike. Do not strike those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow. Set food and water before them, and let them eat and drink and go to their master." And he made a great feast for them. And after they ate and drank, he let them go, and they went to their master. And the bands of Armenian raiders came no more into the land of Israel. And after this it came to be that Benhadad, the sovereign of Aram, mustered all his army and went up and besieged Shomeron. And there was a great scarcity of food in Shomeron, and see, they besieged it, until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. And it came to be, as the sovereign of Israel was passing by, on the wall a woman cried out to him, saying, "Help, my master, O sovereign." And he said, "If Yahweh does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor or from the winepress?" And the sovereign said to her, "What is troubling you?" And she answered, "This woman said to me, 'Give your son, and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son.' So we cooked my son and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, 'Give your son, and let us eat him.' But she has hidden her son." And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the woman, that he tore his garments, and he passed by on the wall. The people looked and saw the sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, "Elohim, do so to me and more, also, if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on him today." And Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the sovereign sent a man ahead of him. But before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, "Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door, and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him?" While he was still speaking with them, then see, the messenger came down to him, and he said, "Look, this evil is from Yahweh. Why should I wait for Yahweh any longer?" Chapter 7. And Elisha said, "Hear the word of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh, about this time tomorrow, a sheh of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 shehs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron." And an officer on whose hand the sovereign leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, "Look, if Yahweh is making windows in the heavens, shall this word come true?" And he said, "Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it." And there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to each other, "Why are we sitting here until we are dead? If we shall say, 'Let us go into the city,' the scarcity of food is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we shall die. And now come, let us surrender to the army of the Armenians. If they keep us alive, we live. And if they kill us, we shall die." So at twilight, they rose up to go to the camp of the Armenians. And when they had come to the outskirts of the Armenian camp, look, no one was there. For Yahweh had caused the army of the Armenians to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses, the noise of a great army. And they said to each other, "Look, the sovereign of Israel has hired against us the sovereigns of the Hittites and the sovereigns of the Mitzrites to come against us." So they rose up and fled at twilight, and left the camp as it is, their tents and their horses and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent, and ate and drank, and took from there silver and gold and garments, and went and hid them. And they came back, and went into another tent, and took from there, and went and hid it. Then they said to each other, "We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we are keeping silent. And if we wait until morning light, then evil shall come upon us. And now come, let us go and inform the house of the sovereign." And they came and called the gatekeepers of the city, and informed them, saying, "We went to the camp of the Aram, and look, there is not a man or a voice of man, only horses tied and donkeys tied, and the tents as they were." And the gatekeepers called, and they informed the house of the sovereign inside. So the sovereign rose up in the night, and said to his servants, "Let me now inform you what the Armenians have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, 'When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and enter into the city.' And one of his servants answered and said, 'Please, let some take 5 of the horses that are left in the city. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel that are left in it. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send and see.' And they took 2 chariots with horses, and the sovereign sent them in the direction of the camp of Aram, saying, 'Go and see.' And they went after them to the Yarden, and look, all the way was littered with garments and weapons which the Armenians had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and reported to the sovereign. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of Aram. So a seah of fine flour was for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahweh. And the sovereign had appointed the officer on whose hand he leaned to be in charge of the gate. But the people trampled him in the gate, and he died, as the man of Elohim had said, who spoke when the sovereign came down to him. And it came to be, as the man of Elohim had spoken to the sovereign, saying, 2 seahs of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, at this time tomorrow in the gate of Shomeron. That officer answered the man of Elohim and said, "Now look, if Yahweh is making windows in the heavens, is it according to this word?" And he had said, "Look, you are about to see it with your own eyes, but not eat of it." And so it came to be for him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. Chapter 8. And Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, Rise up and go, you and your household, and sojourn wherever you do sojourn, for Yahweh has called for a scarcity of food, and also it is coming upon the land for 7 years. And the woman rose up and did according to the word of the man of Elohim, and she went with her household, and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And it came to be at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, and she went to cry out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. And the sovereign was speaking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of Elohim, saying, Please, relate to me all the great matters Elisha has done. And it came to be, as he was relating to the sovereign how he had restored the dead to life, that see, the woman whose son he had restored to life was crying out to the sovereign of her house, for her house, and for her land. And Gehazi said, My master, O sovereign, this is the woman, and this is her son whom Elisha restored to life. So the sovereign asked the woman, and she related to him. And the sovereign appointed a certain eunuch for her, saying, Return all that was hers, and all the increase of the field from the day that she left the land until now. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, sovereign of Aram, was sick. And it was reported to him, saying, The man of Elohim has come here. And the sovereign said to Hazael, Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of Elohim. Inquire of Yahweh by him, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him of all the good wares of Damascus, 40 camel loads. And he came and stood before him, and said, Your son Ben-Hadad, sovereign of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, Go, say to him, excuse me, you shall certainly recover, but Yahweh has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he looked at him steadily until he was ashamed. Then the man of Elohim wept. And Hazael said, Why is my master weeping? And he answered, Because I know the evil that you are going to do to the children of Israel, setting their strongholds on fire, and killing their young men with the sword, and dashing their children, and ripping open their women with child. And Hazael said, But what is your servant, a dog, that he should perform this great matter? And Elisha answered, Yahweh has shown that you are to be sovereign over Aram. And he left Elisha and came to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He said to me that you shall certainly recover. And on the next day it came to be that he took a thick cloth and dipped it in water and spread it over his face so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his place. And in the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, Jehoshaphat was sovereign of Yehuda. Joram, son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as sovereign of Yehuda. He was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the sovereigns of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the eyes of Yahweh. However, Yahweh would not destroy Yehuda for the sake of David, his servant, as he promised him to give a lamp to him and his sons forever. In his days Elohim revolted from under the hand of Yehuda. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Yehuda and made a sovereign over themselves. And Joram passed over to Seir, and all his chariots with him. And he rose by night and struck the Edomites who had surrounded him, and the commanders of the chariots. But his people fled to their tents. Yet Edom has been in revolt from under the hand of Yehuda to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. And the rest of the acts of Joram, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? So Joram slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Aziahu, his son, reigned in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, Ahaziahu, son of Jehoram, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. Ahaziahu was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, sovereign of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the eyes of Yahweh, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. And he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to battle against Hazael, sovereign of Aram, at Ramoth Galad. And the Arameans struck Joram. And sovereign Joram went back to Yisrael to recover from the wounds which the Arameans had stricken him at Ramoth, when he fought against Hazael, sovereign of Aram. Then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, the sovereign of Yehuda, went down to see Joram, son of Ahab, in Yisrael, for he was sick. Chapter 9. And Elisha the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets, and said to him, Gird your loins, and take this flask of oil in your hand, and go to Ramoth Galad, and you shall go there, and look there for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, and go in, and make him rise up from among his brothers, and take him to an inner room, and take the flask of oil, and pour it on his head, and say, Thus said Yahweh, I have anointed you sovereign over Israel. Then you shall open the door, and flee, and do not wait. So the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Galad, and came in and saw the commanders of the army sitting, and he said, I have a message for you, O commander. And Jehu said, For which one of us? And he said, For you, commander. And he rose up and went into the house, and he poured the oil on his head, and said to him, Thus said Yahweh Elohim of Israel, I have anointed you sovereign over the people of Yahweh, over Israel. And you shall strike the house of Ahab, your master, and I shall avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all the servants of Yahweh at the hand of Isabel. And all the house of Ahab shall perish, and I shall cut off from Ahab all the males of Israel, both those shut up and those left at large. And I shall give up the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, son of Ahiah. And the dogs are going to eat Isabel in the portion of Yisrael, with none to bury her. Then he opened the door and fled. And Jehu came out to the servants of his master, and one said to him, Is there peace? Why did this madman come to you? And he said to them, You know the man and his talk. And they said, A lie. Reveal it to us now. So he said, Thus and thus he spoke to me, saying, Thus said Yahweh, I have anointed you sovereign over Israel. And they hurried, and each one took his garment, and put it under him on the top of the steps, and they blew with the shofar, saying, Jehu reigns. Thus Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram had been guarding Ramoth Galad, he and all Israel, against Hazael, sovereign of Aram. But sovereign Jehoram had returned to Yisrael to recover from the wounds which the Amorites had stricken him when he fought with Hazael, sovereign of Aram. Jehu now said, If this is your desire, let no one leave or escape from the city to go and make it known to Yisrael. And Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Yisrael, for Joram was laid up there. And Ahaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, had come down to see Joram. And the watchman stood on the tower in Yisrael, and he saw the company of Jehu as he came, and said, I see a company of men. And Jehoram said, Get a horseman and send him to meet them, and let him say, Is there peace? And the horseman went to meet him, and said, Thus said the sovereign, Is there peace? And Jehu said, What have you to do with peace? Turn around and follow me. And the watchman spoke, saying, The messenger went to them, but is not coming back. Then he sent out a second horseman, who came to them and said, Thus said the sovereign, Is there peace? And Jehu answered, what have you to do with peace? Turn around and follow me. And the watchman spoke, saying, He went up to them and is not coming back. And the driving is like the driving of Jehu, son of Nimshi, for he drives madly. Then Jehoram said, Hitch up, and his chariot was hitched up, and Jehoram, sovereign of Israel, and Ahaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, went out, each in his chariot, and they went out to meet Jehu, and met him on the portion of Naboth, the Israelite. And it came to be, when Jehoram saw Jehu, that he said, Is there peace, Jehu? But he answered, What peace, as long as the whorings of your mother Isabel and her witchcraft are so many. Thereupon Jehoram turned his hands around and fled, and said to Ahaziah, Treachery, O Ahaziah. And Jehu drew his bow and struck Jehoram between his arms, and the arrow came out at his heart, and he sank down in his chariot. And Jehu said to Bidkar, his officer, Take him up and throw him into the portion of the field of Naboth the Israelite. Remember how you and I were riding together behind Ahab his father, and Yahweh lifted up his pronouncement against him. Have I not seen the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons last night, declares Yahweh? And I shall repay you in this portion, declares Yahweh. And now, take up, throw him in the portion according to the word of Yahweh. And Ahaziah, sovereign of Yehuda, saw this and fled up the way to Beth Hagan. And Jehu pursued him and said, Strike him too, in the chariot. At the ascent to Gur, which is by Yibleam, and he fled to Megiddo and died there. Then his servants conveyed him in the chariot to Jerusalem and buried him in his burial place with his fathers in the city of David. And in the 11th year of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah began to reign over Yehuda. And Jehu came to Yisrael, and Isabel heard of it, and she put paint on her eyes, and adorned her head, and looked through a window. And as Jehu came to the gate, she said, Is it peace, Zimri, killer of your master? And he lifted up his face to the window and said, Who is with me? Who? And 3 eunuchs looked down on him. And he said, Throw her down. And they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered on the wall and on the horses, and he trampled her underfoot. And he went in and ate and drank, and said, Go now, see to this cursed one, and bury her, for she was a sovereign's daughter. So they went to bury her, but all they found of her was the skull and the feet and the palms of the hands. And they came back and informed him and said, This is the word of Yahweh which he spoke by his servant Eliyahu the Tishbite, saying, In the portion of Israel, dogs are going to eat the flesh of Isabel, and the corpse of Isabel shall be as dung on the surface of the field in the portion of Israel, so that they do not say, This is Isabel. Chapter 10. And Ahab had 70 sons in Shomeron, and Jehu wrote letters and sent to Shomeron to the rulers of Yisrael, to the elders and to the guardians of Ahab, saying, And now, when this letter comes to you, since your master's sons are with you, and you have chariots and horses, and a walled city, and weapons, choose the best and most upright of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, and fight for your master's house. And they were greatly afraid, and said, Look, 2 sovereigns have not stood before him. How do we stand? We, and he who is over the house, and he who is over the city, the elders also, and the guardians sent to Jehu, saying, We are your servants. And all that you say to us, we do. We do not set up anyone to reign. Do what is good in your eyes. And he wrote a second letter to them, saying, If you are for me, and if you obey my voice, take the heads of the men, your master's sons, and come to me at Yisrael at this time tomorrow. Now the sovereign's sons, 70 beings, were with the great men of the city who brought them up. And it came to be, when the letter came to them, that they took the sovereign's sons and slew them, 70 men, and put their heads in baskets and sent them to him at Yisrael. Then a messenger came and informed him, saying, They have brought the heads of the sovereign's sons. And he said, Make them 2 heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning. And it came to be in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, You are righteous. Look, I conspired against my master and killed him, but who struck all these? Know now that not one word of Yahweh which Yahweh spoke concerning the house of Ahab does fall to the ground, for Yahweh has done what he spoke by his servant Eliyahu. And Jehu struck all those left of the house of Ahab in Israel, and all his great men, and his friends, and his priests, until they left him without a survivor. And he rose up to go, and went to Shomeron on the way, at Baeth Aked of the shepherds. Jehu met the brothers of Aziyahu, sovereign of Yehuda, and said, Who are you? And they answered, We are brothers of Aziyahu, and we have come down to greet the sons of the sovereign, and the sons of the sovereign's mother. And he said, Take them alive. So they took them alive, and slew them at the well of Baeth Aked, 42 men, and he left none of them. And he left there, and met Jehonadab, son of Rechab, coming to meet him, and blessed him, and said to him, Is your heart right, as my heart is towards your heart? And Jehonadab answered, It is. Jehu said, If it is, give me your hand. And he gave him his hand, and he took him up to him into the chariot. And he said, Come with me, and see my ardor for Yahweh. And they made him ride in his chariot. And he came to Shomeron, and struck all those left of Ahab in Shomeron, until he had destroyed them, according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke to Eliyahu. And Jehu gathered all the people, and said to them, Ahab served Baal a little. Jehu serves him much. And now call to me all the prophets of Baal, all his servants, and all his priests. Let no one be missing, for I have a great slaughtering to make to Baal. Anyone who is lacking shall not live. But Jehu did this deceptively, in order to destroy the servants of Baal. And Jehu said, Set apart an assembly for Baal. So they proclaimed it. And Jehu sent throughout all Israel, and all the servants of Baal came, so that there was not a man left who did not come. And they came into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was filled from end to end. And he said to him, who was over the wardrobe, Bring out garments for all the servants of Baal. And he brought out garments for them. And Jehu and Jehonadab, son of Rechab, went into the house of Baal, and said to the servants of Baal, Search and see that no servant of Yahweh are here with you, but only the servants of Baal. So they went in to make slaughterings and ascending offerings. Now Jehu had appointed for himself 80 men on the outside, and had said, The man who lets escape any of the men whom I have brought into your hands, his life for his life. And it came to be, when he had finished making the ascending offering, Jehu said to the guard and to the officers, Go in, strike them, let no one come out. And they struck them with the edge of the sword. And the guards and the officers threw them out, and went into the inner room of the house of Baal, and brought out the pillars of the house of Baal and burned them, and broke down the statue of Baal, and broke down the house of Baal, and made it a latrine to this day. Thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. However, Jehu did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had made Israel sin from the golden calves that were at Beth El and Dan. And Yahweh said to Jehu, because you have done well by doing what is right in my eyes, and have done to the house of Ahab all that was in my heart, your sons are going to sit on the throne in Israel to the 4th generation. But Jehu did not guard to walk in the Torah of Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, with all his heart, for he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, who had made Israel sin. In those days, Yahweh began to cut off some in Israel, and Hazael struck them throughout all the border of Israel, from the Jordan to the sun rising, all the land of Galaad, the Gadites, and the Reubenites, and the Manasshites, from Aroer, which is by the Wadi Arnon, including Gilad and Bashan, and the rest of the acts of Jehu, and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Israel? So Jehu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Shomeron. And Jehoahaz, his son, reigned in his place. And the days of Jehu reigned over Israel and Shomeron were 28 years. Shalom.